guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Brittany from She Run the World Travel Blog, and I've been living in South America as a digital nomad for 3 months now. I started in Argentina and on to Chile, and now I'm in Ecuador. So from my experiences the past few months, I thought it'd be fun to put together a list of pros and cons of living in South America as a digital nomad. Let's dive in. So we'll start with the pros. The first one is that it's exciting. It's exciting, right? To be somewhere new, to be experiencing new things every single day. Even if you work remote back home, it's really easy to stumble into that monotonous routine, but when you live abroad, every day is interesting. Even if you're just going for a walk at lunch, you stumble across a new part of the city that you never saw, or a hole-in-the-wall restaurant with these local foods you've never heard of and you want to try. So honestly, that's probably my favorite part about living abroad and being a digital nomad, is just the excitement of it all. The next one is make the most of your time off. So kind of to piggyback off of the first point, yes, it's exciting every single day, Monday through Friday, even though you're working, but it's even more exciting on your days off. Every weekend you have the opportunity to travel somewhere completely new that you wouldn't be able to do if you were working back home in the States. And of course, you can use your vacation days to give yourself a little more time in some place that you want to have a longer vacation in. For example, when we were in Buenos Aires, Argentina, we really wanted to go to Patagonia, but it's too far for a weekend trip just to go for 2 days. So when Thanksgiving rolled around and we knew we were already going to have a paid Thanksgiving day and the day after, I only had to take 1 more day off and I got 5 days in Patagonia, which it would pretty much be impossible to go all the way from the US down to Patagonia and make the most of your time there if you only had 5 days off. When I was living in Austin, Texas before I started this digital nomad journey, as much as I loved Austin itself, there's literally nothing outside of Austin. So there's really no weekend trip opportunities unless you want to leave the city to go to another big city like Houston or Dallas, San Antonio. But down here, the possibilities are endless. Just from Quito alone, we were able to visit the cloud forest, some volcanoes, the gateway to the Amazon rainforest, all by taking the bus for quick weekend trips. Next up, we have cost of living. So of course, yes, the cost of living is going to be much lower here than anywhere in the States, especially the places that I've lived, Los Angeles and Austin, Texas, both very expensive places. So you're able to live a pretty luxurious life without really stressing about money or worrying about paying bills. So far, Buenos Aires has been the cheapest, Quito's kind of in the middle, and Santiago has been the most expensive, but all three are significantly cheaper than the US. On average, we've been spending about $3 for a local meal, $10 for an international meal, and about $1,000 per month on our Airbnb rental, which we're splitting between the two of us. Or you say, oh my God, $1,000 in South America for rent? Let me explain. So obviously rent is way cheaper than that in all 3 of the places that I've been so far, but the only way to get those prices is to sign a lease of a minimum of 3 to 6 months, and even then you still might get the gringo price, which is going to be more expensive than what the locals pay. So using short-term rental sites like Airbnb and Fladio give you a little bit more freedom, flexibility, you don't have to sign a lease, but it will be more expensive. But the good part is it's most likely still going to be way cheaper than your rent back in the US, especially if you stay for a minimum of 30 nights and lock in that Airbnb monthly discount. Sometimes that monthly discount can cut it all the way down to the same price as it would be for 2 to 3 weeks. We met a man here in Quito who moved here in 1986, and he about had a heart attack when we told him that our Airbnb for the month was $1,000. He told us if we would have signed a 3-month lease, we could have gotten, $300 to $400 for the month. So that's definitely something to consider to save you even more money and have a lower cost of living. If you stay in places a little bit longer, like a minimum of 3 months, then you can get cheaper rental prices. For us, we didn't want to stay longer than a month, we didn't want to sign a lease, and it's still way cheaper than what we were paying back in Austin. Our rent and bills in Austin totaled about $1,900, so even though this is expensive for Quito, it's still saving us a ton of money. So overall, you can have a higher standard of living here. You can live in the nicest neighborhood, in the nicest building, and you won't really be stressed about money or paying bills. Next up, we have comfort items. So a lot of people get deterred from leaving the States because they don't want to leave, those comfort foods, those comfort shops that they're used to shopping at. And in some places, that's a very valid concern. I lived in China for a year, not Beijing or Shanghai, and I only found 1 burger restaurant. It wasn't the best, didn't find anything else that closely resembled American food, so that was hard for me because I did miss those comfort American foods, but that's not the case in South America. Literally everywhere you go, there's some sort of US comfort that they can offer you. In the malls, they have all of the shops that we would normally shop at back home. And for food, there's always a ton of American-inspired or American-style restaurants. I see tons of burgers everywhere, pizza, fried chicken, and you can always find a grocery store that does have imported US products. They are going to be more expensive, of course, compared to the local products, but they're still available. Everywhere I go, I usually splurge on some Alfredo sauce because that's a huge comfort item for me. And in Quito, I even found ranch dressing, which is by far the thing that I miss the most when I leave the state, so I was super excited. So yes, of course, there are some things that you're going to miss and some things that aren't going to be available, but you can always find some things that make you feel more comfortable and make you feel more at home here in South America. Next up, we have no car needed. So I love the fact that I can just walk everywhere and utilize public transportation. I hate having to drive literally everywhere I go, and living in Austin and Los Angeles dealing with the traffic and the parking, it's just a nightmare. So unless you live in New York City, this is probably how your lifestyle looks, pretty much driving everywhere. But all the big cities in South America are easily accessible by walking, and the public transportation is really efficient and really cheap. I'm talking just a few cents to go on a metro ride. And if you're really anti-public transportation or you just don't want to use it, all the big cities do have Uber as well, and it's super affordable. For a 15-minute Uber ride in Buenos Aires, it was about $3 to $6. In Santiago, it's about $5 to $8, and here in Quito, it's about $2 to $5. And the last one, it's easier to make friends than you think. So a lot of people don't want to leave the States, especially if they don't speak the local language. They feel like they're going to be isolated or super lonely. But in today's day and age, it's actually so easy to meet fellow foreigners in different countries, especially because being a digital nomad is becoming so much more popular. There are tons of expat groups on Facebook that you can join. Just whatever city you're planning on moving to, type in expats in city or digital nomads in city and join a few of those groups. You can ask questions in there, you can chat with people, and sometimes they'll even host foreigner or expat events that you can go to and meet a large group of people, so it's super awesome. You can also join a co-working space. WeWork is really popular around the world, but there's also local ones wherever you go. You just have to find them once you get there. So you'll pay a monthly fee to use their working facilities, and it'll be filled with a bunch of other digital nomads that you can chat with and hang out with. Now moving on to the cons. The first one is language barrier. That's a huge factor that deters people from leaving the US, is the language barrier, and that does come into effect here. English isn't very widely spoken here, even in the big cities, so I would recommend learning some basic Spanish before you do come down here. The good part though is besides Brazil, everybody on this continent speaks Spanish, so even if you're bouncing around to different countries, you only have to concentrate on the one language. And the longer you're in South America, the easier it'll be to pick it up. I'm very lucky to have grown up in Los Angeles, where Spanish is very widely spoken, so I kind of already know the basics just from living there, but I'm not very conversational, but I can definitely get by. Next up, we have crime, and I do not want to generalize here, nor do I want to play into how the media portrays South America as this very dangerous place, but safety is something to be concerned about, especially if you're a foreigner and you look like a foreigner. You're probably going to stick out like a sore thumb. In the big cities that do see a lot of tourists, the main thing that you're going to be concerned with is petty theft, like pickpocketing. So don't put anything in your back pocket, don't wear a backpack on your back, try to keep everything in front of you. But of course, there are going to be places and cities in general that just aren't safe for you to go, especially as a foreigner. But that is true pretty much everywhere you go around the world. So just do your research and talk to people who have been there for a while if you can. Next up, we have working stations. So since you're working in a place that's not your home, you're most likely not going to have the most optimal working station. A lot of Airbnbs now, because there's so many digital nomads out there, they'll advertise for a separate working space. A lot of the time that literally just means the dining room table and the dining room chairs that aren't very comfortable, and that's what I've been stuck with pretty much the entire time that I've been out here. So I'd make that one of the top priorities when you are looking at Airbnbs for the month, or spend the extra money to join a co-working space, so it doesn't really matter. And the last one is that bouncing around gets tiring. So every digital nomad is different. Some like to plop down for a few years, a few months, but some like to bounce around a lot more frequently, and that's what I've been doing. I've been moving every 4 to 6 weeks to a new country just so I can experience as much as I can. And as awesome and exciting as it is, it's also super exhausting, especially all the research you have to do every single month to find the best neighborhoods to live in, scroll through all the thousands of Airbnbs that you have available to you. You feel like you just did it and you already have to do it again for the next month. So there you have it, the pros and cons of living in South America as a digital nomad. If you're a digital nomad, whether you're in South America or not, I'd love to hear from you, see what the similarities or differences are for where you're currently living. Or if you're interested in becoming a digital nomad, feel free to ask me any questions in the comments below. Make sure to hit that like button if you found this video helpful, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any upcoming content as I continue my digital nomad journey through South America. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.